1,600 people start the game, but after we go through the process here, only 5 new people get invited because of those. That's not a good payoff on your investment, right? So funnels will help you figure that out. A note about virality. Don't confuse cause and effect. Here's a great example. Say there's some food you absolutely hate to eat. Just cannot stand it. Don't even want it anywhere near you. Don't like the smell, whatever. If your friend nags you every single day, sends you emails, sends you texts, sends you tweets, what are the chances are you suddenly going to change your mind and love that food? Pretty slim, right? I mean, maybe you go, oh, my taste has changed 20 years later. Chances are you'll just go, look, I just don't like that food. Stop bothering me, right? So sometimes people think about, I can get a hit game if I just send enough viral emails. That's not true, right? You want to know how to get the best virality? Make a game that people love and want to tell their friends about. And then make it easy for them to tell their friends, all right? I call it share the joy. That's what I call the real cause of virality. Okay, monetization, can't talk much about this, but the rules are still being written, especially in different parts around the world. I would just suggest you start from what makes you compelled to pay for something in a game. There is a generational shift that I saw start happening a few years ago. I was giving a talk to some grade school kids about, hey, stay in school, here's the cool stuff you do with the math and science you're learning when you make games. And I was talking to one of the teachers, and they came up and said, well, you guys, how do you make money? You sell pictures. Who cares? I turned to one of the kids and I said, look, if you're playing your favorite Xbox game, and I said, pay me $1 and I will give you a sword which will kill all the monsters twice as fast, would that be valuable to you? They're like, yes. Would you do it? Of course. They turned back to the adult and I said, see, that's what the issue is. That's what we're talking about. We're not just talking about little painted pixels on a screen. It's really about the fun and the experience. And then I asked, do you have an iPod? Yes. Do you have any music on that iPod? Yes. Wasn't that just bits? Like, no, it's music. Let's say, see the difference, right? You're already participating in the virtual good economy. It's just a different form, something you might not be used to. So it's still being written, and we're still in the infancy of it. So figure out what works for you and go for it. Last point here, or actually second to last point. Creating a game is just the first step. When you go live, that's when the real work starts, all right? Key bit of information I can share with you is make sure you have a clear vision. If you've done all the work and got a good design space and a good fiction and good basic features, keep your vision on it because there's going to be a lot of chaos happening. Bunches of players will be playing your game. They'll all have their own opinions on what should be changed. There'll be bugs like you never expected. Weird situations where net connectivity doesn't work as well as you hope. Maybe your database is falling over for some reason. But so you got to keep that vision, and then you got to be able to prioritize because there's never going to be enough people or time to do all the stuff you need to do. So keep the vision and prioritize it. Some more thoughts to share before you launch. Get sleep. Test as much as you can with scaling. Get ready for lots of bugs. Is your Fatui working? Does your funnel work? There's some basics there, but be ready as much as you can. All right. So a few last meta lessons. When you're making a social game, you're making a product, and a team, and a business. If your game works, and you hope it does, you're going to want to have it be a business for a while. So you got to treat it like a business after it launches. I've seen a lot of game teams make that mistake. They get their game done and go, job's done. I was like, oh, no. There's going to be a bunch of players tomorrow who are going to want to play your game, come up with bugs. They're going to want new features in a week. It's a little bit like a television show, if you will. Sometimes I call it like a daily or semi-weekly newscast that has to happen, has to go out on time. You have to have content that people want to see. You have to seduce people to coming back every session to keep playing. Last point there, you can't hide boring with volume. There's a game we made, Roller Coaster Kingdom. It's really put this lesson home, which we're talking about it, and it's like, okay, after you kind of lay out your initial board, what do? Well, you expand it. Okay, great. Why do you expand it? Well, because you want more rides in your game. Okay, and you do that. And what we just kind of found out was that the answer of you expand your game board doesn't work. The game itself wasn't that fun, and so giving you more boring is not going to make it suddenly fun. One of the key tenets we had on Cityville was the game has to be fun before we allow the city to expand. So game designers, I don't want to hear anything about city expansion until we know the core loop is there and that the game is fun. Now, final message to all you guys. I know you're at an inflection point in this industry. It's amazing to see the graphs that we saw before. I could sense it as I was talking and meeting people at the Zynga office. I just want to give you an insight. I started making games in '93. It was with a team of like 4 or 5 people. First game I made wasn't very good. And we were proud of it, but it wasn't very good. Second game I made, not very proud of it. Third game, I thought it was going to change the world. didn't work, right? So it took a little time, right? It took a little time for me to figure out all the lessons. Hopefully some of the stuff that I shared can help you bypass that. I know I'm working with the guys in the Zynga office closely. I'm mentoring them, sharing all this experience firsthand. But just, you realize you guys can do this too. It's just, you're getting started. So take advantage. If you want to take advantage of the rise and the geometric growth that's happening in industry, work together, right? It's a community effort. You can make your career right now. You talked about, the 100 people on that slide who will be very successful very soon. Be one of those people, but realize it's a group effort. Realize that by working together, you can help raise each other up faster than just working by yourself. And that's all I have. Take care. Great. Thank you. What are we doing now?
We have about 5 minutes for questions. So if you have any questions, we have mics around here.
Or just shout it out.
Yep.
Don't be shy. Oh, go ahead. And please talk loud. There's a mic.
I'd like to ask, what sort of role does branding play in gaming? For example, the logo of the company.
1 second, there's some noise. Go ahead, say it again.
What sort of role branding plays in game? For example, the logo of the company, the image of the company, the logo especially of Zynga with a dog side of it. So how did you reach that logo? If you can speak about that.
Okay, make sure I got your question right. What role does branding play in your game?
Yes.
Okay. My experience is branding plays an important role, but not right away. And here's why. I've seen great games create brands. I haven't often seen a brand that doesn't have any support or any kind of history of great games create great games. So does that make sense? So if you're starting out, don't worry yet about what kind of brand you're going to have in terms of your name and what it means. Focus on making a great game. If that works, then your brand is going to be easy to create. It's going to be easy to reinforce. And then eventually, if you have a couple of great games, then you have a structure that you can have a brand and it's going to be meaningful. So that's my take on that.
Just curious about how did you reach the logo for Zynga?
Say that again?
The logo, company logo for Zynga.
Right. What's the role?
How do you reach to that logo? I mean, with the dog. Thought about the logo.
The role? Oh, sorry.
Thought behind the design of the logo.
Oh, thought behind the design of the logo. There was, the company founder had a dog named Zynga. It was all around the company in the starting days, and that's how it happened. Not often great stories, but that's the reality. Okay, somebody behind you had a question.
Yeah, hello, sir. So I wanted to ask, what was the basic difference between when you design Command and Conquer Generals and this Facebook-based game? The basic difference.
Okay. So the difference between designing what was a very hardcore, narrow PC game that's about war, right? Global war, in fact, versus a farm game or a social game. The big difference was, it's going to sound stupidly simple, the big difference was difference of fiction, and taking the objects in the world and making them fun. So in the war game, what were the elements of the world? It was the terrain, it was the weapons, it was the armies and all that, and making them interact in a fun way. In a farm game, it was the plots and the crops and the cows and all that. So it was mostly just a shift of perspective. And also, and this is what a lot of people know, in the RTS games, it's a smaller niche in the PC world. We're always trying to expand that niche, always trying to make it more and more accessible to more and more people. That transferred exactly when we made Farmville. And some of the interface control elements that we brought to the social game industry, the context-sensitive cursors, that came exactly out of that space.
So I recently played Empires and Allies on the Facebook. I think that is made by Zynga too, Empires and Allies. It has cartoony art style to it. It was deliberate.
I'm having a hard time hearing. What was that? So Empires and Allies, was the art style deliberate? Yes. And by the way, that team that made Empires and Allies was my team at EA that made Command and Conquer Generals and Battle for Middle-earth. And yes, we tried to pick an art style that was, like I said, fun, light, approachable. You kind of want to touch into the screen, reach into the screen and touch it. And the challenge that they had in that game was, how do you bring that very hardcore mechanic to the wider audience? And I think they did some great stuff there. Okay. Next question? Right here in front.
Went from designing games that were predominantly played by men to games, facts and figures we understand, predominantly played by women.
Right.
So, firstly, do you think you can get more men to play the casual social games that are on this? And so what kind of, do you see that happening in the future? And how did you take that leap of faith when you were asked to come over and do this to actually completely shift from what you were doing to something completely different, different audience, everything kind of the exact opposite?
Got it. So the question is, how do you make that shift from going hardcore games for men to social games which are predominantly played by women? And do we think we can get more men to play those games? Yeah, it was a big jump. Internally, though, it was another opportunity to make a game for an audience. One of the things that I knew about how women played is by watching my wife. End of the day, the kids are in bed. She's got 5 or 10 minutes to just kind of chill out, wants to connect with her sister and family through email, and would play, in the early cases, Solitaire or Minesweeper, right? And I saw that play pattern and then understood this is one way to approach this, what this audience and what this market wants. More men started playing the game. Initially, it was a lot of women, but then it shifted to be about 50-50, men and women. And as the Facebook audience grew, there was an older generation of men players that came into the space. And so right now, I'm less worried about how do I get more men into the game and more about how do I address a global audience, men and women, and even different age groups. That's the approach. There's somebody way sort of in the middle? Yeah, with a hat. Bang. Go ahead. It's a trick microphone. Just, can you shout it? Okay. Okay. So the question for everybody over here was, there's a lot of motion gaming development going on with Kinect and the Wii, and can that complement or work with social games? My take is, I don't expect ever to see a mom, I'll use that example, connect to their PC so they can stand in front of it and harvest their crops with hand wave motions. What I do expect is that console makers, console game designers will start picking up on some of the social lessons, social gaming lessons from our space and bring it into theirs. And there's a mini revolution waiting to happen there. But it's not going to be the same kind of games. I mean, you'll still maybe have a first-person shooter where it's more social and kind of a team speak. There's already that. But it'll be more simpler games that mom can play, grandma can play. Maybe it's going to replace in front of the TV family game night, right? Since not everybody now has to have a controller. Right? I still think there's a ways to go, but it could come and happen. Let's try somebody over here. Let's start far and we'll kind of move this way. Go ahead, wave with the glasses there.